Welcome to another Thursday on the Pagan Perspective. I'm your host Yeka, and this week we've been talking about Buckland. So before delving into the topic, I want to remind you guys that we are still holding the auditions for a new substitute host for next year, and we've already gotten some really great auditions. But there's still a lot of space for more folks, so if you are interested, I'd really encourage you to give it a try. The link is in the description box below. You can also just find it on the regular channels page. So yeah, okay, so this topic, let's see, sorry about this, comes from the Coffee Time 4, and they want to know about Neo-Wiccans and Buckland. And they write, what is the difference between Wiccans and Neo-Wiccans? And why do Neo-Wiccans not like Buckland? The reason I'm asking is because of a particular channel that I used to like until their video on Raymond Buckland and the Big Blue Book. I could understand that she does not like something, but could she had used terms that would be more tactful instead of saying words like stupid and later in the comments crap. She started to call him sexist without giving proof, and then went on to say that the questions at the end of each chapter were stupid without giving examples. I don't actually agree with that, having watched the video. In the comments she mentions, I don't know, I've seen some people get really upset with Buckland. I don't like him, but I'm nowhere near some of the other Wiccans I've talked to, mainly Neo-Wiccans, to be honest. And then the viewer gives us a link to that video. So I have to admit, well, start off, this is a very Wiccan-centric topic, and it's asking about this particular group of traditions. So right, we've got paganism or neo-paganism as this really big umbrella, and then we've got a smaller umbrella underneath that that's Wicca, and that's got a lot of different traditions, and it's going to mean a lot of different things to different people. I am not a Wiccan. The only time that I will call myself a Wiccan is to quickly communicate the idea to somebody who asks, oh, like, what religion are you, or something like that. So instead of going deep into, what I actually believe or don't believe and all of that, I just use that word as a shorthand, and I know that a lot of folks do that. Some people who more strongly identify with Wiccan don't like that we do that, so that might be something I want to rethink. But anyways, my general understanding of the history of neo-paganism and Wicca in the United States comes almost exclusively, and I got this off my bookshelf to show you, from this book, which is Drawing Down the Moon, Witches, Druid, Goddess Worship, and Other Pagans in America. It's by Margaret Alder. So that's the particular bit that you're going to get from it. And I think that I got this one right after the update in 2006 came out. So it's been a while since I've read it. I did read it cover to cover. But anyways, let me continue. I was not familiar with the distinction between Wiccans and Neo-Wiccans until reading this topic. I think that it probably is, my guess is trying to distinguish between some of the more traditional traditions that were coming out of the 60s, 70s, and that time period. That, of course, is before my time. I don't have any personal experience with that, having been born in the late 80s. Now, on the dislike of Raymond Buckland, my take on it is that there's a lot of figures from that time period who had very strong positions. And so this fellow was he was an English individual. He was born sometime in the 30s. I don't think he's actually died yet. I think he's still around, but he is pretty old. But he was heavily influenced, as I understand it, by some of the European occult traditions, and of course those traditions were heavily influenced by the general culture of the last few centuries in Europe, which has tended to be, from what we'd consider today, as very sexist. He also would have come of age during the 50s or so, which would also most likely, this is just guessing because I've never met this individual, don't have any real interaction with him, that the 50s was not a particularly great time for being a woman and respecting us as equals and all of that, despite having, you know, what the many movements already having happened already, but the 70s and the 80s were still yet to come, and then that's a whole nother topic, the history of all of that. But he, I would assume, would be somewhat of a product of his time. That doesn't, it's close enough to our time period that whether one chooses to excuse someone for that or not is really up to them. And so the thing that kind of stuck out to me was that she was saying, well, that the viewer says that she was saying that he was sexist. My memory from it was that she said that he was a woman hater. And I'm just not familiar enough with his work to really say whether he was or not. The only things I can think of off the bat where that might have come from is he did have 3 wives. That might have been part of that perception. The coming from the occult traditions, that tended to be bias in very strict, let's say, in the ideas of masculine and feminine. And also, if I remember, he had a problem with the Charge of the Goddess, and kind of connected to all of that, he was pretty heavily criticized for being very anti what he called homebrew traditions for quite a period of time, and then several years later really doing a total switch and actually creating his own tradition. And so I've heard people criticize him for that. Outside of that, I really don't know too much about him. I've never read his book. He's mentioned a few times in Drawing Down the Moon, but he's not really a huge figure in that. So going back to the questions about why this particular YouTuber made the choices and the statements that they did, I think it's rather more appropriate to ask that person why she made those choices and those words than to ask us, because I could speculate, but I don't know her. I mean, I've seen a few videos over the years, and I have my general impression, but I don't know how off or how close that is, and so I don't want to say, oh, well, it's because people's identities are, you know, or whatever. But really, I think as a non-Wiccan, and a younger one who really didn't have any personal experience with this individual we're talking about, that's about what I've got to share. I'm really looking forward to Dancing Rabbit's video on this. He probably has a little broader of a perspective on this, which, by the way, going back to the auditions, is one of the reasons that we really value having a lot of different perspectives. Having different people from different traditions, people from different ages, different parts of the world. So again, I really encourage you to consider auditioning. So we've got one more week of regular hosts, then we've got a subs week, and I think we've got 2 weeks of vacation. During that time we'll be looking over the audition videos and letting people know. So have a great week and take care.